Welcome everybody. I am Abby Garrison with Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise. Welcome and thanks some elected officials for coming tonight. I saw Councilman Roan and Commissioner Graham. I wasn't sure if there were any others that I missed, but feel free to say hi to them. Thank you for all that you do as well. A little bit about C&E and why we got involved in this project. As many of you know, but some of you might not know, Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise, we're a nonprofit here in town that's been in business for almost 27 years now. And we have long had a focus on housing and just general neighborhood development in Chattanooga. And so we've done everything from building and rehabbing individual houses and apartments all the way up to kind of master developing whole neighborhoods. So we can do a whole bunch of different things and have done a whole bunch of different things. And just in general are here in Chattanooga to help support great neighborhood development. So that is how we got involved in St. Elmo. Y'all just have an incredible amount of interest and energy and momentum in this part of town and in South Chattanooga in general. And a bunch of kind of frankly grassroots type of efforts came to our attention, as well as our funding partners, Lyndhurst and Benwood Foundations, and we all kind of realized that we needed to kind of help channel all that energy and this great thought and great intentions for this part of town. So that is how we came to be involved and have hired Mike Watkins and his team, as well as a slew of other experts that have done everything from some market studies for us to the actual planning and architecture. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mike Watkins.
Great. Okay, hey, thanks for having us for the past few days here. It's been great being here. You all are a great audience. We've been doing a lot of talking and a lot of listening. For example, we have a microphone tonight. That came up in one of the comments. We have 2 slide screens, including a great big one. So hopefully you'll be able to see the presentation a little better tonight. We have almost enough chairs tonight. There's still a few for those of you that want to find a seat and fill in. There's a few up front and a few here to my left and some scattered ones around. Okay, one of the things about this process is that the conversation continues without always cycling back to where we started, which is to say, it's your responsibility to keep up. Okay, so if you're here for the first time tonight, you may need to ask somebody to fill you in if I skip over some things that I don't go into a great amount of detail on. And the reason for that is simple, is because a number of people were here earlier and heard the earlier conversation. And so repeating that for them wouldn't necessarily advance the cause tonight. So there's a lot to cover tonight. So I'm going to do my best not to repeat things we've talked about, except to glance over them and then go into more detail on things you haven't seen yet tonight. One thing there's been some confusion about is the area that we're here to take a look at. The red line outlines the study area. That's the area that we anticipated studying when we came here. We knew that there would be some adjustment to the boundaries as various issues and so forth came up, but that's the core study area outlined here. There are a few other important areas to talk about. One is the historic district that you see here, which we're not going to talk about much, except that, the yellow area is the area that was considered in the residential report. I'm going to talk more about that momentarily. And then this blue area in the center may be a little difficult to see, more so now that the image disappeared again. The blue area is the subject area of the retail study. So there were 2 studies that were done to determine what demand there might be for growth in St. Elmo, the residential study and the retail study. And the reason they're slightly different is because they use different sources for the data that they're looking at. So that's the reason the mapped areas are a little different. You pay for those studies based on zip codes and areas and so forth, so it's not uncommon to study the core area and then assume that that could apply, a certain distance out from the core. So that's why it's not always essential to study the whole area. Examples of those include the boat launch. Somebody came in. There's all this. This talk about the spring that runs through the middle of town. You actually see it running alongside Virginia, and then it disappears for half a block or so, and then reappears, and then it disappears nearly completely. Today we discovered the well downtown that appears to be a real well with water at the bottom and everything. And then, of course, lately it reappeared again in front of the ATM machine, to everyone's surprise. That stream actually appears on your 1928 Sanborn maps. So when you use some of those old maps like that, they can tell you a lot of information that's relevant even to things that matter today. Somebody came in and said, well, that stream actually, before they built the railroad, continued all the way to Chattanooga Creek. And we could actually have a boat launch very short distance away from St. Elmo by following the trajectory of the Gillespie branch down to the Chattanooga Creek and then into the Tennessee River. Okay, all right, great. Okay, the bulb's not as bright on this one, but at least we have big images to look at. So can we advance to the next image? Are we ready for that? Aha, okay. So this shows, here's the boat launch I was just talking about. Okay, so we're tracking that here outside the study area, even literally across the tracks. A few of the other things that came up, the importance of identifying alternate routes for traffic along St. Elmo. Because right now that bears quite a lot of traffic to the disruption of people on porches and people at sidewalk cafes and so forth. So this is a reminder to investigate alternate routes there. In fact, your 1911 plan, I'll show you that in a moment, but the 1911 plan that was commissioned by your Parks Commission and executed by John Nolan proposed a parkway loop, and I'll show you the extent of that. That's, I think, something worth reconsidering, because one of the things we heard repeatedly in meetings is the importance of connections between the various neighborhoods, Alton Park, St. Elmo, and so forth. And that parkway has an interesting way of grouping those neighborhoods together. Just over at our last meeting before lunch this morning, Gil from Alton Park came in and said, well, there used to be another connection. At Central and 51st, there was a street that connected over the hill and down to Tennessee in this location. Again, we pull out those Sanborn maps, and right there it is. So we haven't been up to check it out because, it's considerable distance from the area we're looking at, but we've marked it here so you can track that idea. Now, a few places that are outside the study area we did tackle. The entrance down here at the state line, and we had some folks come in and say, well, St. Elmo's a long, linear neighborhood, and we may need something of the neighborhood center, a small one, on the south end, where we can do a little bit of shopping or get a coffee or what have you, without having to go all the way downtown. So we did take a look at a neighborhood center midway about on the length of St. Elmo, at 47th to be precise. Okay, so the yellows, so we have a plan for the red, the area outlined in red, and then each of these yellow areas we have more detailed plans of. Okay, so I'm going to advance through the various ideas next. Oh, this actually shows the boat ramp connection. Let me get my bearings. So here's the Chattanooga Creek. It's blue on blue here. It's, Blue Creek on a blue background. But this is Chattanooga Creek. It actually comes roughly down. This property crosses who knows where now under the railroad and down through all these properties, and then eventually to down across the street here, under the street, and then down Virginia in that location. That'll keep recurring in various images as we go through this. Okay, next. Okay, here's that parkway from your 1911 plan. Here's the state line, the entrance to St. Elmo, and then notice how this park follows the creek all the way around to the river, and then notice how it groups these neighborhoods, St. Elmo, Alton Park, the others, together by wrapping them with that greenway. I don't know I haven't been out to check to see what's happened, but man, wouldn't that have been fantastic if in 1911 the city had secured that land for a parkway like this. It would have been, the best parkway system in all of Chattanooga, in fact. Next. Mostly I reinforce that because I, too, am an out-of-town planner proposing ideas for you all to implement. And I just want you to make sure to realize, opportunities that were missed when other planners did the same thing. Okay, these are the Sanborn maps. Maybe a little tough to read on the block wall. Among the interesting things that you see, one interesting question came up is, we're sitting in one of the meetings here at the Rec Center, and somebody said, well, are we in Alton Park, or are we in St. Elmo? And was that you? Somebody said that, and everybody kind of looked around, and no one really knew the answer, which I actually took as a good sign, because if we're interested in blurring the boundary, then, maybe it's not so important that we know exactly where it is. And then somebody spoke up and said, well, this is either both or neither. I thought, oh, well, maybe that's the way a community rec center should be. As it turns out, right there's the school, and the property line, the boundary on this map does this. So here's the edge of the cemetery, the west edge of the cemetery. So this is Alton Park. According to the 1928 maps, this is St. Elmo. Then it takes a jog down 40 and then comes up just west of the school here. Next, please. Okay, let me get my bearings. Oh, this is the one that shows the creek. So we zoom in on the Sanborn maps and you see the creek appearing here. This is the bank lot, past where the convenience store is, under the railroad. Winds around here, becomes the Gillespie branch, connects down to the Chattanooga Creek. And it's pretty easy to see how you can have a boat launch pretty close to St. Elmo. Next. And then here's the school in that boundary between the two. Next. But interestingly, go back for a second. It says here, even, towns of St. Elmo and Alton Park, as if, it wasn't entirely clear even then. Next. Okay, now a bit about the schedule. In the introduction, Abby said, we're not finished yet. You are by no means finished. Like, this is just the beginning of the beginning. We have the easy part to come to town and strew out all these ideas, right? It's going to be up to you all attending these citizen meetings and then your city meetings and so forth to see that these ideas get implemented. Here's where we started. This was Thursday night. We're facing the other direction. Thursday night, we met Saturday in the room next door. Here we are 4 days later. This is another feedback loop. So we'll have 3 of these in the process. The first was we heard from you all Saturday, but we didn't show you anything. I'm sorry, Thursday night. We didn't give you anything to react to. We were really just listening at that point. Then Saturday, we did have some things to show you, and you had the opportunity to react. Tonight's another opportunity like that. And then what happens from here is we take the work back to the office, refine it further based on what we'll hear tonight and in the next few days, refine it further. And then we give it to the folks at CNE. They're actually the ones that asked us to come down here. And you may have noticed they're hearing all of the ideas and seeing all of the drawings at exactly the same time you are. Sometimes you see them before just because of when you wander in. So this is a very open process that we're running here. And as you'll see, because the drawings aren't all finished that I'm going to share with you tonight. So we take them back to the office, refine them further, give them to Abby and her crew, They'll do another run through of critiquing and commenting. We'll polish them further and then come back and do a presentation with the finished drawings. Okay, so that process is going to continue. And just because the drawings are finished doesn't mean that's the end of the ideas. There's a lot more work that goes into making any one of these actually happen. Okay, next, please. Now, a couple of the important things about this feedback process is that we rely a lot on you all. So you'll see, I think, many of the ideas that you've contributed simply recorded here by the design team. Another important part of this process is that, my expertise is not Chattanooga or St. Elmo. It's planning and architecture and writing codes. I didn't grow up here. This fellow Gil grew up here. He was full of information in this morning's meeting about the history of Alton Park and how various design ideas have evolved, some maturing there and some not. But my expertise is not St. Elmo. Clearly, it's your expertise. Because anytime, the process works like this, like you tell me things, and then I repeat them back to the group. And then it's really, I'm leaving it up to you to correct me, to say, no, actually, the bank doesn't own that lot. It's owned by a REIT down in Florida and this and that and so on. And you all have done a marvelous job holding up your end of that bargain, let me tell you, because I throw out for the historic guidelines, for example. I'm going to get to that in a moment. Wow. There's some people that are really passionate about the historic guidelines, and rightly so. And I'm grateful because I've learned a great deal about the historic guidelines, which will now enable me to write a better code for you all to use moving forward. So thanks for all that advice. Next. Some of it even comes in the form of tweets and emails, and I think most interestingly, the conversations that I've had with a number of you at places like Pasha, downtown, or the various restaurants where we've been eating. Because sometimes in those one-on-one conversations, people are more comfortable sharing things than they are in big groups. So feel free to use those means to communicate your thoughts and ideas with the group as well. Next, please. Okay, so now some of the ideas. So this is, actually, I don't have it on that one. That's my fault. I should have included another image. This is St. Elmo and 47. So the big Methodist church is located on this corner. So somebody came in and said, it'd really be nice for us to have a place closer that we can walk to meet some of our needs. And then somebody else said, oh, you mean like Okie Dokies? Which I thought was absolutely a fantastic name, only to find out that Okie Dokies was run by Mizoki, which makes it even better. So hopefully we can find a person as interesting to operate a corner store that could begin meeting some of your needs down in the southern part of St. Elmo. The idea here is preserving the big tree that's on the corner and then perhaps making this that sort of mixed-use neighborhood store. Long term, it could be ideal to raise that intersection, to do a speed table, so that when the traffic is going down St. Elmo, before they get to the crosswalk, it actually bumps up, alerting the drivers that they're now in the pedestrian zone. Sometimes those are textured. Personally, I don't recommend using texture on the crosswalks, simply for women in heels, people in wheelchairs, kids in strollers, that sort of thing. But you can certainly do that prior to the crosswalk and after in that area. And then a bit of a plaza in front of the church. Because of the line of sight as you're driving from the south to the north, there's a great place for a piece of public art at that square. And then with knowing what's coming as far as the retail study or the residential study that was done for the zip codes to the north, we took a liberty here, this was not anyone else's suggestion, that those property owners who have cottages facing St. Elmo with the really deep lots might consider orienting the cottage back to Virginia Okay, so actually moving the house to the back of the lot, and then using the more heavily traveled street, the part that faces St. Elmo, for slightly higher density housing. You know, because there is a need for townhouses, in fact. So that's what you're seeing is a group of 4 townhouses here, and then one, what we call live-work unit, commercial on the ground floor, residential above. So that's the thought here. And then in this case, moving those houses could make way for what we call six-packs, small apartment buildings. You know the type. You walk in the front door, there's an apartment to your left, an apartment to your right, the same on the second floor, the same on the third floor. So we call that a six-pack of apartments. So, and those apartments can serve a great role in the community. For example, as you age in your large Victorian home, it becomes increasingly costly and difficult to maintain it. And often, the only option that you have to continue to age in place in your neighborhood is to move out, you know, which is a real shame. It's very unfortunate. You know, or actually in another neighborhood I'm working on, we got an email the day before yesterday. Somebody was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease. You know, but because the neighborhood offers a range of housing types, they're going to be able to find a handicapped accessible apartment in the neighborhood and continue to stay in the neighborhood and maintain the relationships that they have. So those six-pack apartment buildings could be even elevator-served, handicapped accessible units. So something you might think about as a way to broaden the available housing stock in the neighborhood. Just an idea. Because of the configuration of those lots and in this block, the creek actually runs through the middle of some of those lots. There may be an opportunity to take some part of that, you know, working a deal with these property owners to create a small park in the middle of the block. So that's what you see here. And then these are small houses built facing Virginia in the back of these lots. So it's a bit of a reach here because, as I said, it's not the area that we were asked to study. But, you know, it's just a drawing on paper. You don't have to do this if you don't like it. Okay, and then the street section there, you know, some time ago the parking was removed in favor of providing bike lanes along St. Elmo. That's great for bicyclists. What it does for the cars is create a lane width that feels wider. You know, even with the painted stripe there, it feels wider than if there were a parked car. You know, where you have to pay attention if somebody's coming between the car, might open the door, whatever. On-street parking is a great way to slow traffic. So you'll see in a minute we're going to propose accommodating the bicyclists on Virginia and on Alabama, and that you restore the on-street parking on St. Elmo, which is what the next slide shows. So this is the existing, and then, oops, go back one. I'm sorry, I must have reversed this. So that's the existing condition, and then this is the proposed condition with very faint cars shown parked on the street here. Okay, next. Okay, now, you know where you are here in the middle of the block. This is Virginia, right? Some of you saw this on Saturday. So I think it's fair to say that some of these backyards are underutilized here. One of the things we learned in the from the report, the report that the RPA did in 2001, is of their recommendation that you all allow auxiliary dwelling units on your lot with some restrictions. But the idea is that somebody could have an apartment either in their home. You know, I used the example of the English the last time who, in their townhouses, will often rent out the basement. They set the townhouse back from the sidewalk, have a beautiful light port to let light down into the basement, and then rent out those flats as a way to generate income, pay for the mortgage, the college education, what have you. In my neighborhood, we do them above garages. In this neighborhood, what we thought is that you could actually build little cottages along Virginia Avenue as a way to activate Virginia Avenue. And I think it'd be particularly great for that crowd that bikes everywhere, because they could actually live on a street that's designed for bicyclists. You know, it has nothing but bike traffic and pedestrian traffic, no cars at all. So this is us moving the St. Elmo bike lane over to Virginia. Little footbridges across to some of the cottages as necessary. Next. Okay. Notice the sign that appears here and another one here. Okay, now next. There we go. See, this says Virginia Avenue Bed and Breakfast, St. Elmo Bed and Breakfast. You could turn Virginia Avenue into its own little bed and breakfast, a little horizontal hotel, if you wanted. So you could build rooms out back that, you know, for the trouble of setting up a website and getting somebody into, you know, to clean as needed. You could have a bed and breakfast finally here, which I think is something that's much needed. The fact that Rock City on top of the hill attracts hundreds of thousands of visitors a year, and there's no place to put them up in St. Elmo, is a gap I think you all could fill. And you know, the great thing about these tourists, if you can get them to stay a little while, they do nothing but leave money behind. You know, so for your restaurants, your shops, and so forth, it's an idea that you might consider. Okay, next. Now, but that's not, as I said, that's not an idea that the idea of the auxiliary unit we didn't make up. That was proposed 15 years ago. You know, so, and I understand, like, the first thing when I bring it up, the first thing everybody says is, you can't do that anywhere in Chattanooga. Okay? The best way I know to persuade the powers that be to consider it is ask to do it on a trial basis and just in this little area. Well, let us be the guinea pig. We'll test it out here in St. Elmo. Don't go in trying to change the rules for the whole city. You know, that wakes up everybody. You know, so just let's try it here. Like, how much damage could one of those little cottages do? Okay, next. Now, and if you need the text amendment to the zoning ordinance, this is the one we put in place 25 years ago in my neighborhood that does things that hasn't changed since. Might have changed one time. Might have changed one time. It had to do with the parking requirement associated with it. We originally said don't require any parking. You know, and then eventually they said, I think you have to have half a space, you know, per unit. So every other one had to have a lot. And we can count on-street parking to meet those requirements. But anyway, among the requirements, things like one of the units has to be owner-occupied. You know, so it's not absentee rental housing. You know, one of the units has to be owner-occupied. And I shared the example from my neighborhood where somebody moved into the rental unit, the auxiliary, the small unit, rented the house out and actually had positive cash flow on their mortgage. So that was a pretty good setup. Other things restrict square footage so they can't get too big, that sort of thing. Okay, next. Now, when we were meddling down in this area that's outside our study area, we noticed the historic district guidelines. And I happened to mention that they're 150 pages thick, so I hadn't read them yet. And that stirred up all kinds of conversation, let's say. I've learned a lot since then. Next. For example, whatever you think about those historic guidelines, look what they've accomplished. Best Old House Neighborhood, St. Elmo and Chattanooga getting national attention. All right? Best Old House Neighborhood 2013 in the South. That's a pretty remarkable accomplishment, I would say. Well-deserved. It's absolutely charming. I think personally the buildings that you have, I would say, they're not the most typical examples of the various styles, but they're far and away the most interesting. Like, you know the arts and crafts building you have that have the big, tall piers and those short little columns? Absolutely fantastic. No, it's not typical of the style, very unique here. Or the carved pieces that you have in the gable ends of the Victorians, you know, absolutely charming. You know, really terrific. So kudos to the folks that pulled this off. Next. I also made an issue of the fact that they were called guidelines. When I write codes, I use guidelines to mean things that are guidelines. You know, the recommendations. It was made clear to me that your historic district guidelines are not just recommendations, they're law. Okay? Good thing, you know, because it's an important resource that they're out there to protect. But we had an interesting conversation about that, and that they might have better been called something else, because not everyone apparently realizes that, in fact, they are law. You have to follow those guidelines. In 2011, the Tennessee State Legislature passed new enabling legislation that now lets us write style-based guidelines elsewhere. Good thing, because you may decide that's what you want for an area like your commercial district. Okay, so you see how that process works and how well you're holding up your end correcting me? Okay, but that's how I learn too, and we build all of that back into this mix. Next. Okay, now, this is where the plans should match, and I'm going to try to use this screen to keep you oriented as I show you things other than plans on this screen. Okay, so this one will change occasionally. This one will change more often. But while it's up here, these are the areas where we have more detailed plans. So I'm gonna wait to go over those recommendations and talk just about the few things that fall outside that area. Among them, do you know Far Enough? Do you know the old home site, Far Enough? There's a great story that goes with it. I'll spare you tonight, but you should ask some of your neighbors, because I think it's another one of those funny stories. There's a home site up here. The home's no longer there. Actually, the only thing that's there now is a stair. Well, the wall at the base on Old Wauhatchie, and then a gap where the stairs were, and then you go up to the kind of barren site, and there's a great view down the river on the other side. The idea was put out that that could be a great site for the various outdoor activity nonprofit organizations to come together and build an information, kind of observation, explanation, visitor center, if you will, which I think would be a terrific anchor for St. Elmo to lock in. Now, like, that's something I would get on right away to figure out how you can make that happen, because it's such a great idea that I could see other neighborhoods, even downtown, saying, no, wait a minute, we want to put that here. I'd get on that here, because you're also, within eyesight of a proposed boat launch, even now, to say nothing of a short walk up to the Guild Trail. That's something else that came up, is getting more connections through to the Guild Trail, like this one. We've shown a few houses here along Old Wauhatchie. There's already houses on one side of the street, but not the other, just the stone wall from the kind of memory of the houses there. I think it'd be a nicer street if you were open to adding some houses here. Then there's this community garden in back of the Carta parking lot, the Carta Incline parking lot. We heard that there's great support for a community garden. In fact, it went so far as manifesting itself in a grant proposal that, just due to some miscommunication or something, missed the deadline. And somebody said, well, can't we get that out again and resubmit it? That seems like one of the first things you might dust off and then figure out who that needs to go to get the backing to make that happen. So I think it would be a great idea. It's a great location for it. And there's already been a lot of work done to advance that. So just a small push might make that happen. Next. And then we owe you a drawing to suggest other trail connections. Many of you may have ideas about an existing right-of-way that's been forgotten, or the connection kind of overgrown, or what have you, to some of the various trails around the perimeter. And we're trying to get those mapped. The obvious one I already mentioned, the Guild Trail. Here's the Riverwalk connection. This is one of those drawings that's not done yet. Next. Okay, so now we're going to shift over to this area by the school. So here's the building that we're in now. This is the rec center, the post office, and the fire station. From the first meeting we had, the interest in connections between Alton Park and St. Elmo and the other neighborhoods was repeatedly discussed. Connections. 40th right now is the only connection other than the Safe Walk. So you have those two. One suggestion that was made is that the Safe Walk could become more than a walk. Why couldn't it be a street, essentially connecting the old 38th Street through? It seems to have never connected. It's not that way on the old maps. There's pieces of the right-of-way kind of stubbed in, but they never quite made it. So that's what this drawing is showing. This is 38, following the alignment of the Safe Walk. At this point, the Safe Walk goes this direction. We were thinking it might go up the hill to the back of the Bilo and down to the traffic signal. So that's this connection. Here it follows the curve of the safe walk for a while and then comes out perpendicular to 40th. And then the safe walk itself continues here, but lined with housing. More housing in this location. This is housing back here. A couple of additions here. I'm going to go into more detail on this on another drawing. This was one of the earlier schemes where we were paying more attention to things like topography and the soil conditions and large existing trees, and not so much to meeting some of the housing demand that's coming this way. We hadn't sharpened our pencils very much at this point. If you were here on Saturday, you saw this scheme next. Okay, so this is the latest idea, because we've since talked to the folks that run the rec center, for example, and they said, wait a minute, that field, in fact, we use that a lot in the summer. It's not a regulation sports field. You know, there's a baseball diamond and then it's kind of big green open area. The parking behind the school is kind of this big gray asphalt area. Like all of that area back there is just not efficiently used. So this is us attempting to use that area a little more efficiently, still following grades and staying out of the soils area and so forth. So here's 38th again. We've pulled away from the safe walk a little bit here and then connecting up to the bilo in the back. The area here where you see the fields, that's the spoils area. You know, the area with the bad soil that's been capped. That's part of that area, and it's capped and then useful for things like parks and parking. So we thought, well, why not put two fields back here, a baseball field and a multi-purpose soccer field in this area. One gentleman came in and said, essentially, I don't care what you do with the park or the safe walk, but we need bathrooms there. You know, so listen to him, and we thought at the entrance along the street where there's more activity, and even perhaps people living across the street, would be the place to put a facility like that, because you have more eyes on the park in that location. So that's what you're seeing here. There's some housing here that backs up to the wetlands and the trees. There's a proper connection here. You know, the folks that live up here have torn a hole in the fence and beaten a path through the woods to get the bilo, but there's no reason that couldn't be paved, you know, either here or here, for example, so they can connect properly to the street to get up here. A couple of different, these are more the six-pack, the small apartment buildings here, and then some attached housing, townhouses along here, and then a little square for this neighborhood. They could have a pavilion here at the end of the street, so you could actually see if people are occupying the park or not, know if you want to go down there. So that pavilion's located here. More townhouses. It's easy to trade townhouses for singles, so we can make a swap like that. And I'll show you what some of these might look like in just a minute. This piece where the tennis court is, I want you to remember where this is in plan. I'm going to show you more details about what that might be. But these are predominantly pedestrian accessible in the front, but then they have alleys in the back to handle the garages. And then more townhouses or single-family houses down here, protecting the largest of the trees here. And then this is an idea about activating the space between your civic buildings and 40th. Because right now, you can't even use the front door to the school because there's no place to park. You don't park out on 40th. There's no parking lot in the front. So what this proposes, you know, right now the process is you go in here and around the back, and then you look and eventually you see this big sign that says door. You know, and then that's where you go in. And then you go in, and because of the way that building is used, you know, it's a collection of overflow uses that the school can't fit other places. So you have this kind of random collection of education-related uses in there right now. And you have no idea where to go. I know because I had a meeting in there. You have no idea where to go, so you just kind of wander around, and eventually you open a door and find somebody, and then they're very helpful and get you where you're supposed to go. But what you could do is actually put a drive in the front up next to the building, provide parking on both sides, so just a one-way loop, parking on both sides, and then you activate the front of that space, which tells people there's something going on there. Right now that building looks closed all the time. You know, it'd be nice to have people out front. This green, actually I'm going to save that because we have a detailed drawing, so I'm going to come back to this piece. What else about the rest of it? Notice a few infill houses here. I'm going to get back to that in a minute. Okay, one of them is the Cowart Street Tunnel. Now, there used to be a tunnel there. So this is Cowart Street here. And if you look at those old sandboard maps again, they show the bridge abutments and show the road continuing through. And somebody in one of the meetings said, well, I was there when they brought the hopper cars full of gravel and just kept dumping over the side of the Coward Street tunnel until the thing filled up. You know, and that closed, sealed off the tunnel. So somebody remembers when that was open, apparently. So we're suggesting, you know, for starters, that you go to the railroad and say, let's open it up. Could we open it up for pedestrians again? Because somebody else came in and said, oh, a sports field here. You know, well, did you know the school across the track is desperate for sports fields? They're bursting at the seams, apparently, over there, and they can't expand in any other. I haven't verified. This is my way of verifying this. So I haven't checked this. I don't know this for sure, but this is what somebody told me. They're bursting at the seams over there, and you know, it takes money to build these sport fields. You know, so maybe there's a deal to be worked out. You know, where they get first dibs on when you use them, but it could be made available, you know, when school's not in session or what have you, for other uses simply by getting this connection tapped through so it's very accessible to that campus. Just a thought. But in any case, multi-purpose field opening up the tunnel. Okay, and then these two restaurant locations. This is the Bilo, their big parking field is out here, and then there's this kind of undulating piece of land, you know, on the other side. In order to make that buildable, it takes somebody with some resources to pull that off. And as we were talking about the restaurant demand in this area, it ranged. Basically, what you all said confirmed what the expert found out when he did his research here. The number one demand of the 55,000 square feet of retail that he says there's demand for in the next 5 years, the number one was restaurants, full service restaurants. And somebody said, well, they should cover the full spectrum, you know, from fine dining to family dining. You know, the family that comes down the incline and, you know, it takes, you have to be a little adventurous to go to the local places. The local places don't always have national, well, that's changing though because we all have apps now, right, to tell us where all the good local restaurants are. But some people prefer the familiar signs and names and gravitate toward those. Nothing wrong with that. And in fact, there's two great spots for a restaurant like that up there on the Bilo Plateau. You know, it could even be more or less the formula version of the national chain, but with decent signage and better landscaping and that sort of thing to fit in with the shopping center up on top there. So that's what you're seeing here, these two pads. Next. Thanks. Okay, this is me being out of order again. This is one of the schemes from Saturday, so we'll skip that. Okay, now this is the residential study. So now that you've seen the plan for what that area might look like, let me tell you a little bit about the statistics involved. They looked at those 2 zip code areas I showed you in the beginning and determined that in the next 3 to 6 years, in fact, go to the next slide. This is me getting it right. Okay, this is the summary of their report. It shows in the next 3 to 6 years, if you look at the households that make 80% of the average, of the median income or more, that would consider moving to the St. Elmo area, you could expect to capture 275 of those households. But that's not to say 275 single-family houses. Look how this is broken down. 120 rental apartments, 40 condos, 50 townhouses, and 65 detached single-family. Next. Next. This is the one I want. Okay. What this shows is in the pattern of, if you imagine this is streets and these is alleys, this shows how much area those 275 units of the types described would take up on the ground at the scale of your town plan. Okay? So you can see in this, here's the school, the rec center, the school, the area behind it, the field that I said was kind of inefficiently used. Even at its most efficient, we're not going to fit all that housing in that area. Which is why it's important to consider, if you want, accommodating some of that demand on the infill lots. You know, we showed a couple here. There are many more opportunities here, and of course, continuing south through St. Elmo. The colors indicate the types. So the dark purple here, just to give you a visual idea, is the multifamily for rent, multifamily for sale. These 2.5 blocks here, well, they're the long blocks, they're 600-foot long blocks here. This is the attached housing, and then this represents the amount of detached housing. And there are a couple different sizes of detached housing that he touched on in his report. Next. Okay, and just to show you some plans, these are all done for other places, but the fortunate thing, enough architects are doing work in traditional communities now, and even in the traditional, some of you may not want just traditional styles, but they're available. So plans for these types that I'm describing, like the 6-pack apartments, they're built other places. So you can go look at them. A builder could call up and just simply order their plans essentially ready to go. So this is a friend of mine working on a neighborhood called Habersham in Beaufort, South Carolina. I've actually stayed in one of these units, and it's fantastic. So you walk in the front door, there's a central hall with a stair and an elevator. One unit on the ground floor here, another here, and then 2 more on the second floor, 2 more on the third floor. And it often looks like this down south. So if you know this type, they're prevalent. They're all over, say, the Midtown area in Atlanta with these fabulous porches. So you may live on a flat, whether it's rental or for sale, but you still get this great outdoor space here. Next. This is the same type, but as a fourplex and taking advantage of the slope. This is one where you could imagine driving in, parking underneath. And then there could be a unit on each floor below. Next. Okay, now this is that. Remember the ones where the tennis courts was? And I said, pay attention to these. They're pedestrian accessed in the front, alleys in back. This is another type that you might consider here that does a great job accommodating the single-person households or couples. It's only a 1-bedroom unit. But it's great, for example, for that person that wants to continue to age in the neighborhood, have all their daily needs, everything on one floor. So look at how this unit works. Front door here, combined living, dining, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom that's readily accessible from both the bedroom and the living area, and then a garage in the back. So very tight, very compact, no wasted space, which all translates into very affordable. Next. If you group those around a common green, you have what Ross Chapin calls a pedestrian pocket. It's a great little book out right now. It's kind of the rage among developers because what they're realizing is that the baby boomers are getting older and they do want to continue to live in the neighborhood where they live now, but have a smaller house in which to live, but still enjoy some sense of community. So by grouping these things around a common green space, next, you get what Ross Chapin calls a pedestrian pocket that could look like this. The green space can be used in all kinds of different ways, whether it's just an open field or community gardens, what have you. Then you get a little private garden adjacent to that. So you enter the unit through a private garden. This is the front door. This is the living room with its fireplace, windows out onto the common green. So this was a type we had in mind that you might consider for that tennis court plateau, if you will. Next. Okay, there's a type. I'm not showing you the quote-unquote normal types, the ones you may be familiar with, townhouses and single family and so forth. They're easy enough to imagine. This is what we call a liner building. So it masks something less attractive or less desirable behind it. So we're using those in places, say at the edge of parking lots. And the way that type works is it has parking on the ground floor and then a central stair or elevator here. And in this case, it's just a very simple 1-bedroom apartment on either side. So combined living, dining, kitchen, 1-bedroom, bathroom here. So very simple unit. They can be 2 stories, 3 stories, what have you. And it's a great way to mask parking lots, and they're only about 20, 25 feet wide. It's a very thin liner building. Next. Those could look like this. So this was a quick facade that was drawn to illustrate how you might pick up on some of the arts and crafts details and so forth that you find here. Next. Okay, and then the issue always comes up about the fact that not all affordable housing should be small, because some people that need affordable housing have kids. You know, you have a family of 4 kids that still needs affordable housing. And we want the housing the opportunities for housing that we are providing here to be not only for that 80% and above category, but also for those that may require assistance with the housing. And the best way I know to do that is through policy, not as much through design. You know, you can keep making houses smaller, but then they don't accommodate those families, so you need to adjust housing policy. As it happens, the county I live in did that in the early 70s, something they call the moderately priced dwelling unit. And that's a program that incentivizes developers to build housing that's price controlled by giving them a density bonus. So where they could have built 22 units, they get to build 26, but 4 of those units have price controls. And they're mixed in. They can't be isolated. You know, and they have to be built to the same design standards and so forth. But the density bonus is what makes it possible for a private developer, for-profit developer to pursue that. Next. Okay, now some other things in that area. This is the Tennessee Triangle. As it's called, this is Think Bike's proposal for that intersection. They offered up 2 suggestions, the circle and this kind of a T intersection. I expressed my preference for the T, I don't know, Thursday night or Saturday, I forget which, because traffic circles are really about keeping traffic moving, and I think we want to give pedestrians a chance to get across the street. So we favored that T intersection next. Oops, I thought we had a detail there. But it just shows the T, it'll show up in the longer detailed plan in a minute. Now, when you make provision for the various types of housing, I do think it's important to, when you want to make it fit into a neighborhood like St. Elmo, to have a code or guidelines. And we thought when we started here that we would be writing guidelines for the commercial district. But there's such interest in a form-based code here that we've decided we're going to move in that direction instead, which is really a zoning tool that can also control things like what you can do on a single-family lot. For example, it would make recommendations about the front yard setback for a house and where the parking goes. You know, so more than just what color your front door can be or how big a sign could be. So we are customizing a version of the Neighborhood Conservation Code for St. Elmo. You'll get that in the next draft. Next. And then we rely on local input. So as we calibrate that to make it more and more specific to St. Elmo, we keep seeking feedback from you all to make sure we're getting that right. And there was a Matt, the landscape architect, sorry, first names are enough in a 4-day period. But Matt was very excited to offer alternatives to crepe myrtles as street trees. So we got a great list from Matt of street trees that are also good to consider. So we'll be building that into the Neighborhood Conservation Code, just as one example. Next. Okay, and somebody else said, how can I learn more about this? They asked for videos more so than something they'd have to read. But the best I could do is 3 great websites. The first is cnu.org, which is the Congress for the New Urbanism website, and there I would direct you to the Charter of the New Urbanism, which is a great collection of principles that inform this sort of planning and design. The next is transect.org. The transect is the tool that's the basis for the form-based code that we'll be proposing, so you can learn more about that there. And then Smart Code Central talks about the many other jurisdictions that have adopted codes like this instead of the use-based code, the conventional zoning ordinance that gives you sprawl. Many other places that have adopted ordinances like that. Now it's rare, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands because it's pretty rare that any of you are going to go to this site, but I'm thrilled to see that some of you have taken out a pen and are jotting down these websites. Because if that's your thing, this is the best place to get that information. Okay, now a few other places around the school, a few other ideas around the school. First, you have 40th Street out here. It's plenty of asphalt that I think is also underutilized. In fact, it's you have 35 feet of asphalt plus sort of 5.5-foot kind of shoulders on either side. 46 feet of asphalt from curb to curb. Next. Oh, this is what we propose that you do with it. Sorry, this doesn't show up better. If you're as close as I am, you would see that there's parked cars on the school and the recreation center side of the street. On the opposite side of the street is a bike lane, which has the effect of narrowing the traffic down to 2 ordinary lane sizes. So you get parked cars, 2 lanes of traffic, and a dedicated bike lane. And on this side, you still have 15.5 feet from the curb over to the fence next to the cemetery. And that's where we think it would be cool to do one of those linear gyms, you know, where you run for a while and then you do some pull-ups and then you run for a while again and you do some other station there. Because it really would be important, I think, if you're interested in building those connections from St. Elmo to Alton Park, the other neighborhoods, to enliven 40th Street. These are a few thoughts about how to do that. Next. Okay, so here's the linear gym. The on-street parking on this side. Those greens become the top lot. You know, it hasn't escaped our attention that as we put housing in to some of the area that's used for parks, that you need to replace those uses, the picnic tables, the swing sets, and so forth. These would be great places to do that. You could actually enclose them with chain link, something as inexpensive as chain link, provided you hide the chain link with a hedge. You know, the chain link totally disappears. You get great gates to keep the kids in or the dogs out or what have you. You get very secure tot lots. And again, you've enlivened that space by making it accessible to kids and so forth. Okay, and then a few other ideas. You may notice some changes down at this end. One of the disappointments, I think, as you head west on 40th from St. Elmo into Alton Park, is that there's nothing at the end of 40th drawing you down into St. Elmo. Well, nothing visible. Anyway, as a practical matter, there's a fire station there and then a library, of all things, but set way back from the street behind a parking lot. So when you look down 40th, what you really see is just the parking lot at the end. What this proposal is about is making a proper square at the end of 40th, and you see all the way at the end of 40th, we've actually suggested a civic monument, a piece of art in the middle of this square. We've protected the lanes where the fire trucks come out, so that's still accommodated in this space. We've even suggested that if the fire station were interested, they could do an addition to pull up to the square and help give shape to that space. Could be something as affordable as a porch, you know, where the firefighters get to just hang out on the porch and engage the neighborhood. Kids love that, you know, and the porch would be a great way to engage them with the neighborhood. And then when the time is right, either expand or build a new library sitting on the square. And now look, the view down 40th past the monument right to the front of the library. So imagine one of those old Carnegie libraries, or, you know, if you favor more contemporary modern architecture, imagine that. But in any case, imagine the library pulled up to the civic space so that you have a civic building and a civic space in proper relationship to one another. And now it's like a magnet pulling you down to Alton Park, right? Because it's interesting, it's great stuff down here. Now this is an idea that can take place over time. There's nothing at all, as far as I can see, that would be complicated about getting the square in place now. Right now it's just kind of this slathering of asphalt as Paroli comes in and 40th makes a bend, and then there's another little side street that comes in there, and there's just this kind of misshapen intersection. But it could be a great civic space. You could end up with an outdoor reading garden here. This library can take kids out, and then maybe even a corner store with, again, a proper relationship to a civic space. Then you've got a great place for a bus stop, because you can go in and get a coffee or a newspaper, or even wait inside until you see the bus coming and then run out and grab the bus. So it really becomes a very active neighborhood center here. This probably, admittedly, this goes in the very long range plan, but it's not inconceivable. that the post office that's here at the moment might occupy the edge of the street one day. Post offices downsizing and so forth as they are make great live-work tenants, so that business of the small shop, the business on the ground floor and apartments of others, absolutely no reason that can't be a post office, scaled to the size of the neighborhood and occupying a great corner location here. So admittedly, some pieces of this are longer term, but others I think could be very near term proposals. Next. Okay, so this is that area I was just talking about. So here's 40th Street. Here's the big wide swath of green, the sort of extra pavement. Then I see what's happened here. Okay, we're giving away a little of the technique here. And then looking down the street here, the fire station. This is the parking lot for the library you can't see. Next. But we're looking at JJ's work at the moment. So he does a quick sketch over that rendering and then shows us what that could look like if we made some of these changes. So now you have the bike lane along the linear gym. Here's the post office pulling up to the street, the fire station, the bus stop, the library, the outdoor reading room. Beyond that is that neighborhood store. So you have the sense of a real neighborhood center at that intersection, which I think is at a very important place between these two neighborhoods, St. Elmo and Alton Park. Did I forget something? Okay, next. Okay, there was, in addition to a residential study, there was a retail study done to look at the gap analysis between how much of your money you spend in these neighborhoods and how much you spend somewhere else, and then thoughts about how you could spend more of it here if other types of retail were available to you here. So Bob Gibbs, the consultant that did this study, frankly, Abby used the two best consultants I know, one for the residential and one for the commercial. And what Bob Gibbs said for the commercial is that you could take 55,000 additional square feet of commercial in this trade area. Next. So up here in the corner, you see what that footprint looks like at the scale of this drawing. So if you can see this box, that's 55,000 square feet in one box with its parking lot out front, or 55,000 square feet in a bunch of little boxes. It's essentially the size of the bilo, just the bilo, not the arms that go out, but just that box. Okay, so we did that just to see how much room we might need to find around the commercial core to accommodate that demand, should you choose to do so. Next. Okay, now I'm going to run you through the plan for the kind of core area, the village center, if you will, starting down here at this end. And I'll keep referring, I think, to this one over here to keep you oriented. But for the moment, I'll show you we're going to stop here at this intersection of Ox Highway and St. Elmo. And then we'll pause again here at the bottom of the incline. And again here along Tennessee, possibly elsewhere. I'll know in a minute. Okay, so now, there are a couple issues at that intersection with Ox Highway. It's nearly impossible to cross. We know because we've tried it. You have to cross a couple of times. If you're on the side of the Purple Daisy, you have to cross the traffic that's going up the hill, up Ox Highway, and then the traffic that's coming down. There's a triangle of paint in there right now that could serve as a great pedestrian refuge, allowing you to make two shorter crossings. So you'd cross 12 feet to the island, the traffic that's going up the hill, and then across to the corner where the traffic comes down, intersecting with Tennessee, and then St. Elmo, and then you cross St. Elmo again to get over to Virginia, if you follow me. Okay, so we're going to make some proposals for that area. Next. Now, the crowd with Think Bike had this proposal about getting bicyclists from the Virginia Avenue. We didn't invent the idea, just to give proper credit. We didn't invent, probably you all had that even before the Think Bike people, but the Virginia Avenue idea, we're just building on on ideas that preceded us as far as this being a bike route. Then the bike crossing here. And then they proposed making Ox Highway more of a T intersection into St. Elmo at that point. So the traffic going up the hill would have to stop and make a hard right turn in order to go up, and pedestrians would just have one, say, 22-foot swath of asphalt to cross. We're going to show a different option because there may be reason to think that it's acceptable that traffic could keep moving in the absence of pedestrians or bicyclists up Ox Highway, just so it doesn't back up, frankly, into the down St. Elmo here. Okay, so notice what's happening here, though. This is the creek that extends and then disappears at St. Elmo, and here's the bike path making a hard right. One of the things you'll see in the proposal that we're making is that the creek could be daylit again there, and in a way that looks like this. So it celebrates that feature as a nice park. It kind of gives a theme to that park, and is even an instructional or educational opportunity for kids about how drainage works. What goes into the stream here makes its way to Chattanooga Creek and down to the Tennessee River and so forth. So you give a little interpretive piece there next. Another example of the same thing. These are from Salt Lake City. You don't have quite enough room to do this in that little triangle, but perhaps at the other end down by the say by the convenience station or somewhere like that, where there's more space available and the creek is running along that edge. We still need to understand how the elevation of the water and how it to keep it flowing downhill. So there's more work that needs to be done, but the idea is to rather than simply pipe the stream, to make it a feature in these parks. Next. Okay, and then you have that garage building there. I can't help share this example. This is in Louisville, Kentucky, where they had a downtown gas station that somebody converted into a deli and a bar, and it's become the hangout when business closes downtown. So everybody comes down here to the garage. The deli's on this side. They throw open the garage doors over here, and the bar sort of works inside and outside. They just simply covered some platforms with astroturf, and people kind of gather on those and hang out and catch up on the day. They have outdoor ping pong tables out there, and then seating around for the deli. Works great at lunchtime. One of the coolest things I think they did was this public art installation here. These aren't two cars waiting for repair at the garage. These are two cars mounted on hydraulic pistons, crashing into one another at the rate of an inch a week. So you see this crash occurring in slow motion. And I tell you, you come here to this bar and no one looks at each other, when they're talking, because everybody wants to be there and see the windshield go, or the hood crumple, so and everybody talks about, have you seen the car crash? Like it's a real event in the neighborhood. So they had a real clever guy working on this section of town, and he's done great things with public art there. I mention it because I think it's a real interesting use, and you might look at what other places have done with their buildings like garages, when the time comes to do something with that building. Next. Okay, and then this building, I want you to find this place in the plan. When you're going down St. Elmo, and St. Elmo splits and Tennessee goes off to the left and St. Elmo to the right, there's that sort of wedge-shaped site there. And on Saturday, I said this would be a great place for a flat iron building, shaped like the old flat irons. And somebody came up to me after the meeting and said, well, I kind of like the monument business there. It too, I think, is an old gas station. The monuments, it is kind of interesting. The monuments are like little sculpture and that sort of thing. But that plot may be a little underutilized. And it occurred to me that it was not dissimilar to this location in Poolesville, Maryland, where a street splits and they have the town hall occupying the fork in the road. This building is 20 feet wide by 40 feet deep. Tiny, tiny little building. But it's the center of town. It's such a great civic building occupying that fork in the road. And we thought, well, maybe if we just adjusted the placement of some of those monuments a little bit, we could make room for a 20 by 40 building that could be used as a neighborhood hall in that location. So offering a meeting place, or it could be another type of visitor center. And so you come down off the incline and you see what's unmistakably a civic building in an important location like that. Next. Okay, another kind of evolution, if you will, of what might happen. Here we are on that corner. Here's where Ox Highway comes down, makes the right onto St. Elmo. Tennessee is here, splitting off. Here's the monuments, the garage building. The Purple Daisy tucked back here in the shadows, its parking lot out front. Here's that triangle of asphalt. I'm pointing out all these things because it's next. Whoop. Okay, here's the sketch over. I point out all those things next because it's, I think, really tough to find them when you look at what this could potentially look like. Let me point them out to you again. Here's the triangle of asphalt with a great monument, another piece of civic art. The tiny crossing here, the crossing over Ox Highway. Here's the bike route connecting over to the daylit stream park on this side. There's even room for a little island here, so we could separate a bike lane here from the traffic on St. Elmo in this location. The biggest difference here is obviously pulling the Purple Daisy building up to the street. Now go to St. Elmo and travel north, go far enough back, go back to like 45th or 46th, 47th, so you're past the rise, and then drive into town from there, and you go up a little rise, and then come down, and straight in front of you could be the Purple Daisy. Right now it's their parking lot. You know, it actually could give more visibility and more attention to that restaurant if it were pulled up to the street. And then it could be equipped with awnings and planter boxes and so forth, so their outdoor seating would really activate the sidewalk in that location. Here's the back of the public hall that I mentioned in this location. You know, a little more civic art here in the form of a Purple Daisy. Okay, next. You know, sometimes we work a little late or, you know, on the weekends and things like that. Things like that creep into the drawings. Okay, I'm going to move down to the incline, the base of the incline now. A lot of conversation there, much of it about correcting me again. There's conversation about that parking lot and how tickets are sold. For example, I made the very flippant comment, probably more than once, about doing timed ticketing. Remember that conversation? And I said, well, I don't know why. You know, somebody came in and said, well, they have the technology now. Like the place they sell tickets, they actually have the technology. All they need to do is flip a switch, and they could start selling time tickets. That is a little hard to believe that it would possibly be that easy. But of course, you know, that'd be a great way to test it. You could just throw the switch one Friday and then Monday morning, see how that worked out. You know, and the advantage of time ticketing, of course, is that instead of your tourists waiting in line for 2 hours so they don't lose their spot, they'd be, you know, buying burritos and coffee and getting massages and aromatherapy and whatever else when you're downtown. Well, as soon as I said that publicly, somebody came in and corrected me. In fact, that technology isn't there. But repeatedly, the folks at CARTA have very, even after I made those kind of comments, they remain willing to study that. So they're going to look into the time ticketing option. Because that business, public transportation, is a public service too. And they know that to increase their own ridership, it's important that the public has a good experience there. So despite my comments, they continue to remain willing to study that. And not only that, but the shuttle at the top to give people more options for what to do when they get to the top of the incline. So when you see those folks at CARTA, you should be sure and thank them. Because let me tell you, when you run a regional transportation authority, there may be more to do than pay attention to, you know, the interests of a neighborhood like St. Elmo. That is a big operation. And I can tell you that the executive director of the operation has been to quite a few of these meetings and engaged in this process. So you owe them that thanks. And patience while they study, okay? Patience while they study that. Somebody said they should bring back the free pass. You know, like residents would get a break. In fact, somebody told me that there are actually 7 people left who have a free ride up the incline. Not sure if that's true still or not. Somebody will come correct me, I'm sure. But that's what I've heard, that there was a deal worked when, you know, land was swapped to put the incline so that you could have a free pass. The problem with free parking is that no one ever moves their car. You know, and if you're in business downtown, you don't need somebody to sit at your restaurant all day. You know, you're trying to get 2 or 3 turns or more out of that table, and you need to keep those cars moving. And one way to do that is to charge for parking, completely reasonable. Perhaps it makes sense for residents to get a discount. You know, that's something you can talk about, how you figure that out, that you're a resident and you're not selling off your resident passes in the parking lot to the tourists who don't want to pay so much. You know, that sort of thing. There's bound to be a way to work that sort of thing out. Next. Now, one interesting idea that came up after all that conversation about time ticketing, somebody said, well, you know, when you go to a restaurant anymore, you don't get one of these beepers. Next. You get texted when your table's ready. So there are apps like Wait Away, where instead of waiting in line for 2 hours, you can go shop or what have you, and they text you when it's about, you know, your turn in line, so you can go back. So it might be a system like that that could be put in place there that frankly gets you more of those tourist dollars. Next. Okay, and then if there were ever changes to the structure at the incline, you know, not to be critical or anything, the incline structure, it's quite nice. It doesn't look as much like a rail station as it might. You know, so it could be that stylistically, if there were changes made to those structures there, that they could move in the direction of looking more like a piece of a rail system or public transportation system. So somebody on the team did this quick sketch that looks very much like a little train stop. You know, they also did this drawing, which I thought was pretty interesting. You know, the Romans have these really great fountains in their plazas, and they're terrific because of the way they use the water for washing, for cleaning vegetables and that sort of thing. So there's a spigot down low, and then there's this cool hole in the top that if you plug the bottom of the spigot, the water shoots out the top and it works like a drinking fountain. They're really wonderful. So one possibility is to offer the memory of that stream as it passes through your square in the form of a fountain that's useful to say pets and people who need drink water. So somebody sketched up a fountain idea about that they had. Next. Okay, so now this space. There's a lot that can happen in this space. For example, somebody brought in the public art that you've commissioned that's being built right now. The big circle with the history of St. Elmo. There was also the idea that perhaps the tickets could be sold in the plaza. You know, right now where they're sold, you go from the parking lot to the ticket booth, and you can get right on the incline. Never really set foot on the street in St. Elmo, but the ticket kiosk could be moved out into the plaza. So that's an idea for this space. The 2001 plan that the RPA did suggested that the entrance to this parking lot might be off the driveway to the Carta parking lot. You know, another reason to maintain that relationship. You know, because you might need something like that from them, access into that parking lot, which would free up more of this space for other things. Next. Okay, so I'm going to show you now what this space might look like. Okay, this is the St. Elmo Deli, the bottom of the incline. Pasha's in this corner. Here's 1885. Next. This is that space today. Next. And then this is what it might look like. If, for example, you put a farmer's market in that plaza at the base of the incline, moved the ticket kiosk into the plaza, took the driveway out and connected the parking lot off the Carta driveway. Here's your public art, the beginning stages of that. Restore the 2-story porch on that used to be on that building, the Pasha 1885 building in this location. Plant a few trees along the edge of Tennessee. Is this Tennessee or St. Elmo? It's kind of, this is Tennessee. Yeah, both or neither. Yeah, it has to be both. Okay, never mind. Never mind. Okay, this is Richard's building that has Peter and Lawrence's offices in it, and then a climbing gym. Nothing on the third floor, from what and the creek running through, the river running through it. Okay, and then entrances to a couple parking lots and a one-story building over here, somewhat underutilizing that space. Next. Okay, so you know where we are here. I can't believe so. Okay, next. Okay, so there's that, the illustration as it is today. Next. And then what that might look like. And let me walk you through the evolution of these changes. You know, as we said, these are a combination of short and long-term ideas. Okay, but just to prove to you this is the same place. Here's the corner of the 1885 building. All we've done here is add the two-story porch that used to be there. We're showing parking on the street. Right now it kind of looks like you have parking on the sidewalk there. The way the sidewalk's shoved in, there's about 7 parking spaces on that side. This side has the only 2 parking spaces on that side of the street, the entire length. In this case, these are those liner buildings. Remember I mentioned the very thin buildings that had parking below and then small apartments above? They could also be commercial on the floor above. And as you know, the parking lot for what I'll keep calling Richard's building is depressed halfway, right? If it were depressed slightly further, you could have at-grade commercial with below-grade parking entered off of St. Elmo. So you'd sneak in off of St. Elmo, park underneath, commercial uses here, and then apartments or offices above. That building's only about 20 or 25 feet deep. Completely massed up parking lot. Okay, now, this is Richard's building. I couldn't help copying one of the coolest urban design moves I've seen in a while, which is the climbing wall on the face of the parking garage downtown. I mean, is that exceptional or what? Yeah, I have been inside. Yeah. It's fantastic. And the fact that there's outdoor restaurants across the street so you can sit there and have a drink and watch, I think it's just absolutely fantastic. And then somehow they worked it out so that they could cantilever out over the public right-of-way. Fantastic. Do you know of any other city that has a parking garage that will have people glued to it, you know, watching what goes on with it? It's fantastic. You already have a climbing gym inside here. You know, it's conceivable that maybe some piece of that idea might find its way into the corner of that building. You know? Did anyone notice the billboard's missing? No. They're important. That's so important to have, in fact, that we put one on top of the climbing wall, figuring they could go the extra mile. You know, wouldn't it be great to have a billboard about, you know, the climbing school with people going up and down the billboard there? Now, you deserve a little something if you get to the top of the wall, right? So we thought the top of this would be a great place for a rooftop bar downtown. So you get a little reward after that climb. And that we know you'll be tired, so that vacant third floor could become Crash Pad 2. You know, the youth hostel for all the hikers and bikers and trail enthusiasts and so forth. And even perhaps for some of those visitors, there's hundreds of thousands of visitors that have no place to stay here. I can't imagine that. What do they stay at the Hampton or something? You know, what a disappointment after such a great experience up and down this mountain to not be able to stay in a place like St. Elmo. I stay at Hampton Inns, but you know, it's a different type of experience, you know. So the idea of a youth hostel occupying the third floor here. And then on this side, at least it's equally aggressive. Those buildings and parking lots right now, they sort of alternate, right? Perpendicular, so the building goes all the way back, the parking goes all the way back. You could take that same amount of commercial space, turn it 90 degrees, use the buildings to line the street and the parking in back. The problem, of course, is that's not the way the property lines run. You know, the property lines run perpendicular to the street, not parallel. So there needs to be some cooperation there. That's clearly a longer-term objective. The reward, of course, is the second and third floors here, because you have to pay for knocking down a building and moving it somehow. And one way to do that is with additional rents or additional income from selling apartments or something on top of those buildings. Okay, next. Technically, how you pull that off is restriping the paving here. So what this is showing is that, in fact, you have 35 feet curb to curb through that stretch. That's plenty of room, leaving the curbs as they are, to have parking both sides, and actually including moving those, the cars I'm talking about, the 7 cars that are pushed, it looks like pushed onto the sidewalk. You can actually pull those back out and then have a sidewalk of proper width all down that side. You'd lose the parking where you have to pick up the left turn lane. That's in another drawing. So that wouldn't be the same the whole length, but when you get to that light, you need to pick up that left turn lane, so you lose some of the parking next. That's the existing condition next. Okay, then jumping over to St. Elmo beside Chatham. That's where the Riverwalk comes through. We had ideas back and forth about which side of the road the Riverwalk should be on. Turns out, after looking at all and considering all the different opinions that came in, we concluded that the folks that designed Riverwalk have it exactly where it makes sense, which is to say on the west side, next to the wall. Do I have that right? Yeah. So next to the wall. But leaving the curbs in place there next, you could provide that Riverwalk. It'd be ideal to be, the wall's starting to lean over. If the day comes that the wall needs to be rebuilt and you're on the good side of the folks at Chatham, you might ask if you couldn't have a couple of feet to push the wall back and then adjust the slope a little bit so you could get a wider area left for the Riverwalk. This side, you might do the same thing and pick up a little more room to have a wider sidewalk and room for street trees there. But we're also suggesting that there's plenty of room for on-street parking through there. Should the folks at Chatham need more parking, it's just for the price of paint, you can accommodate quite a. I'll have the number next time, but quite a number of cars parked on the street there. Next. Oh, this is the plan. So, well, if you look closely in yellow, it's not perceptible here. Oh, maybe here. This is the left turn lane, but this is all the parking that could be added. We think on street in various places on Tennessee and St. Elmo, and we're not sure Tennessee and St. Elmo. And then Tennessee at this point. Well, interestingly, the guy that did the retail report said that the parking here is adequate, perfectly adequate for the amount of retail and the retail that can be expected to come. It would come with some of its own parking requirements, but the parking here is completely adequate, just that no one can find it. Part of that problem is that you don't have enough on-street parking, and the signage directing people to the parking is bad. So this plan is the start at showing you where the on-street parking can go, and then we will also make suggestions about how to sign parking. Most other cities use the big blue peak. You all have much more local handcrafted signs that just aren't as immediately recognizable as parking instructions. Next. Okay, we're getting near the end here, literally, and with the presentation. So the RPA report had proposals too for what to do with these crossings, or with the tunnels at the north end. They're obviously not in great shape. There's been some effort to make small improvements to make them more attractive next. We did that usual sketch next. And then we had this idea of simply putting, welcome to St. Elmo across the top. Not surprisingly, you all had that idea too. And in fact, somebody told me that several years ago the railroad actually went along. They sent a list of things that you'd have to be liable for if you went and did that, but that they'd let you do it. And then this is me testing things again, so I'm fully expecting people to come up and correct me on this too, because I'd like to know why that never happened. It's a huge accomplishment just to get the railroad on the phone, much less to agree to anything like putting signage like this up. But it would be great for St. Elmo to mark the entrances to town with signs like this. So if funding is an issue, okay, well, all right, so if that's the issue, then let's tackle that. But we may need to call up and see if the phones are still connected at the railroad, if they'll still talk to you, about this sort of thing. And then I saw, that restaurant Aaliyah downtown? Have you ever been past there at night? Our hotel's down near there. In the window, they have these gigantic gas lights. A few of you are nodding your head, you've seen them. They're fabulous, you know, and I saw one of those and I thought, wow, wouldn't that be cool here? You know, could you see if you call it an art installation, you know, you can get away with just about anything. But to light that tunnel entrance with a gas light, so you've got flame going on there, it's kind of dancing on the ceiling underneath there and glowing in this really attractive way, that might be something. Well, at least get the railroad's attention, you know, if you call up with an idea like that. So that's one suggestion for what might happen there next. And then driving in from the airport, the last time we came on Brainerd, you know, and we're pleasantly surprised by these markers, these entrance markers to the Belvoir neighborhood. They're really terrific. You just know there's a special place back there. So I thought, aha, you know, that's what I'm going to suggest to the people at St. Elmo, that they have some markers at the entrance to their neighborhood. So I go down to the other end, where we want to put your markers next. And don't you know, you already have them here. It's grown over, you know, one's gone completely. The other one's grown over. It's covered up here by a picket fence that has signs about, you know, Pepsi on sale at the convenience store, that sort of thing. Somebody told me that the semis kept taking out the one that was closer to the road when they turned into the tank farm or something. But I went and looked after I heard that because I was so disappointed that you couldn't get that second one back. Somebody else said that the city actually has the stone somewhere. They were the ones that dismantled it, but they don't know where it is, but they have it somewhere. But there was trucks that kept knocking it over. That's the reason for that. But I went and looked, and that surprises me. Like those if they're knocking that over, because you could only be turning into the gas station there. There's plenty of room to do that. This is far enough back from that driveway entrance to the gas station. And there's plenty of room to make a wide right and turn into the tank farm there. So we need to look into that a little bit, because what we'd like to see you consider next is putting the other one back and restoring the signage that was no doubt something like this at one point, so you have a proper entrance when you travel in from Georgia. Now, when we started talking about a signage at the state line, this just happened at lunch today. Somebody said, well, you know, the state of Georgia has a program to enhance entrances to their state. So, aha, you know, next. So this is the view looking into Georgia at this point, next. The sketch is saying next. And we thought, if we took the other side of those signs and said, welcome to Georgia, that we might persuade them to release some of those funds to provide some additional landscaping and so forth for the edge of the tank farm next. Okay, that's all I've got. Tonight, we'll be back. Thanks.